Well, here we are coming at you live from way out west in upstate Tokyo. This is the Gaijin 50 Plus Japan Talk podcast. Well, it's the end of the New Year holidays in Japan. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying 2026. And I hope that 2026 will be a banner year for all of us. So, the New Year's this year for me was pretty quiet. We just had a family gathering. We do it once a year, get all of our family together to say hello to each other. You know, we don't meet so much during the year, but then we got the oh, what's going on here? It seems like oh, it seems like this is coming in through my this is coming in through my webcam, which I have it set up. I have another camera set up here, but I thought that I was going to have, let me see if I can change that. Nope, I can't. I'm in the middle of a stream, so we'll just go ahead with this. Well, as I was saying, it was been a very quiet New Year's. What I did was I was trying to get a bunch of Gaijin 50 plus stuff together. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to implement. I wanted to try. I wanted to see if I could get to work. But unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do that during my regular university working days. You know, usually at the university, the day isn't that hard, but it's pretty long, and you know you have to do the long commute an hour each way. So by the time I got home and ate dinner, I really didn't have the energy to start doing something else. So I end up just eating and going to bed. And then on the weekends I have other things to do. You know, I'm just giving you excuses now. But one of the things I tried to do was for this live stream, I wanted to set up a thing. I don't know if you're familiar with OBS. Now, OBS is a kind of streaming and recording software that lets you do all kinds of neat things. That is, put a countdown at the beginning so you could see it counting down to the start of the live stream, and to put a trailer at the end to say goodbye and stuff like that. And it also lets me display certain things in a certain way. For example, when I talk about some news article, I can display the news article with my picture in picture down here, like in the corner or something like that. And I've always wanted to do this, set up a bunch of articles, and then as I talk about them, display them. I've seen high-powered YouTubers doing this all the time. And so I thought, gee, that would be so cool to do. I spent most of my New Year's holiday free time trying to set up OBS on my Windows laptop and just could not get it to work. This is why, I don't know if you noticed, but I had a live stream scheduled and then I had to change it because it didn't, I had it scheduled to use OBS, and then I found out I couldn't use OBS. And so I right away had to cancel that and go through my regular webcam here and stream directly into YouTube. If there's anybody out there who's an expert at this kind of thing and wants to give me advice, I'd appreciate it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give up on Windows and I'm going to move. I have a Mac Mini, which has an M4 chip, which should be more than enough to handle OBS. So I think I'm going to shift over to there. So if things go according to plan, next week's live stream may be much higher quality using OBS Studio instead of this darn Windows machine that I have. So let's have a talk. I got a couple of articles here. I've got one thing that I want to talk about in detail. The first one is talking about Nengajo. Do you send a Nengajo? Did you send Nengajo this year? These are the Japanese postcards that are, in the past you used to get piles of them on New Year's, and you'd have to send out piles of them, and it was a real big pain because you have to create them, and you have to address them and send them out to all of your friends. But it seems like year by year, the number of people sending nengajo in Japan is going down. As we've said before, some people say, "Oh, Japan is changing," and of course, it's changing. It changed, like every other place, every other country, it changes with technology and things like that. And postcards, New Year's postcards, are no exception to this. It says that Japan Post reported a record low number of nengajo, New Year's greeting cards, were delivered nationwide on January 1st. And it's the 17th consecutive year of decline. Even with all of this decline, though, there were still 363 million postcards delivered, but this is only 74% of last year's numbers. Nengajo is being killed by the digital age. Like a lot of other things, people are more apt to send New Year's greetings by messenger or by email or something like that. In fact, I didn't get very many nengajo at all. I got a lot of New Year's greetings like online or on Facebook and things like that, but not very many printed nengajo. And to tell you the truth, I'm, for one, happy to see them go. They're such a pain to make them and to prepare them. Every year virtually every year you have to buy this new software, and every time it's a different character and all that kind of stuff. So nengajo are on their way out, even though 363 million were delivered this year. But you figure this is another industry, right? Not only is the post office going to suffer because they're not going to be selling enough nengajo, but also, Kansai Boxer, hi, how you doing? No more, too much yen. Yeah, it's too expensive to send nengajo, isn't it? Not only do you have to buy the postcards, you have to buy the software. And then if you're using a color printer, you have to buy all the color ink and stuff like that. And the time, The time to manage all of the things that you have to deliver. And as you know, people who live here know, if somebody passes away in somebody's family, then you shouldn't send them a nengajo. So they usually send a postcard out beforehand saying, my father died, so don't send me a nengajo. So it's a pretty big pain in the neck, isn't it? So nengajo. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad to see it go. Kansai Boxer seems to be glad to see it go. He says it costs too much. And I agree, not only in money, but in time. As you know, I am my Japanese hometown is Fukuoka. And I really like Fukuoka. And it's the place where I consider my home. I've got a My Japan Life episode coming up this week. I talk about what it was like when I first arrived in Fukuoka. I talk about the things that surprised me about Japan when I first came here. It's only 15 minutes long. So that's not to say that not too many things surprised me. A lot of things surprised me, but I didn't want to get carried away. So when I first got to Fukuoka, there were a lot of things that I didn't expect. One of the things that I mentioned is the weather. If you look at the map of Japan, it looks like it's a long, thin country, kind of like California. So you think Fukuoka's in Kyushu, and you think, oh, southern Japan, like about Los Angeles, must be pretty warm, must be pretty tropical. Nope. No, it isn't. Japan, as all of you long-term residents know, is like split down the middle by a mountain range, and you have two distinct sides. You have the Pacific Ocean side, and you have the Japan Sea side. in another video, I said the Japan seaside, and somebody took that to mean Japan beach, but actually what I meant is the Japan Sea side, the Asian side. And the Pacific side has pretty mild weather. And especially even if you go down to Fukuoka, like I said, like in Miyazaki, it's quite warm down there, quite warm, like a very mild climate, almost like a tropical climate. When I first came here, when international travel was very expensive, they used to call Miyazaki the Japan Waikiki Beach, because a lot of Japanese people, when they got married, they would go down there for their honeymoon because going to Hawaii was too expensive at the time. But anyway, that's Miyazaki. Towards the Asian side, where Fukuoka is, it can get pretty cold in the wintertime. And it's just as cold as it is in Tokyo, as a matter of fact, down there in the wintertime in Fukuoka. So I was surprised at that. I thought I wouldn't need an overcoat. The first time I went out, I arrived in the wintertime, and the first time I went out, I think I might have gone out in short sleeves and almost froze my butt off. I learned real quick, it ain't tropical down in Fukuoka in the summertime. So down in Fukuoka, I found a pretty interesting article, one that caught my eye. It says Nepalese population in Fukuoka is up nearly 300-fold in 25 years. And now there are more Nepalese living in Fukuoka than Chinese, which is quite a feat, if you ask me. As a matter of fact, the last time I went down to Fukuoka, I was trying to catch a train somewhere, and they've got all those different trains. You got to catch the right one, or else if you get on a local one, it's going to take too long and all this kind of stuff. So there was this young lady standing on the platform, and she looked kind of Japanese, but kind of, it was hard to tell. And I walked up to her and spoke to her in Japanese, and she gave me one of these. Okay, I tried reconnecting. It seems that there are no people left here. I hope that somebody tries to reconnect again so we can keep on with our chat here. So it says that the Nepalese population in Fukuoka reached 13,535,000, and that outnumbers the Chinese by only 30, but still it is something. Okay, we seem to have gotten back here. Boy, that's pretty terrible. I'm streaming directly into YouTube Studio, so I don't see why this connection should go bad. I'm connected directly into my router, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, it seems like a lot of Nepalese people are coming to Japan these days. I know that also in Tokyo as well. Okay, you're back. Hi, Kansai Boxer. All right. It said I know that in Tokyo also there are a lot of Nepalese people around here working in the convenience stores. And it says that Nepalese people are trying to come to Japan to study Japanese and to get work and things like that. According to the statistics, foreign residents in Fukuoka were predominantly Korean from the 1960s through around 2000, which makes sense because Fukuoka is not that far from Korea. And then it shifted to Chinese from 2002 to 2024, 22-year run. But since around 2012, the number of residents from Nepal and Vietnam has climbed rapidly. By the end of October 2025, the Nepalese population had reached 14,380. Okay. So it says that Fukuoka is doing what they can to support their foreign population. They have outreach classes at Japanese language schools on topics such as garbage disposal rules. Wow, that seems to be the most important thing in Japan. You got to know how to throw away your garbage. I don't know what the big thing is, but this thing, that's one of the biggest complaints that Japanese people have about gaijins, that they don't know how to throw away their garbage. But traffic, garbage disposal rules and traffic etiquette. That's another big thing now, traffic etiquette, because it seems like foreigners are getting behind the wheels of their cars and getting into accidents. I don't know what the stats are, if it's any more than Japanese, but it's one of the things that the Japanese people do bring up about the complaints that they have about gaijins is the traffic accidents. But Fukuoka is doing their best to support their foreign population. I got another one here. This one is weird. And again, this is not to say anything about Japanese people, because I don't think they have any kind of a monopoly on this kind of offense. But we're talking about sex offenses. I hope that this gets by YouTube. I heard that YouTube has pretty strict policies about what words you can use and what words you can't use. But this is a news story. So it says that 70% of Japanese employers do not use the National Sex Offense Database when hiring teachers. 70% of Japanese teachers. And that's 70%. When I say employers, I mean local governments and schools that hire teachers starting from April 2023. Now, they've got this nationwide database of educators who have been dismissed due to misconduct, the X with the big S, the S misconduct, that was introduced in 2023. And actually, employers are legally required to check the database before they hire somebody. And and they found out that 42.7% of employers of teachers have not even registered to use the database. And like I said, it was implemented in 2023. And so they started checking into this, the compliance to this requirement, when they found out that several teachers were arrested for sharing voyeuristic images of students on social media last year. And they found out that, like I said, almost half have not been using it. And the reasons given for non-use include that they were unaware it was legally required, and they also have a lack of proper understanding of when to use the system. And the usage among private school operators was notably low. What do you think about that? I did a little checking around, nothing too deep, so don't quote me on this, but I started wondering about these teachers and these teachers getting into trouble with students like this. And as I said, this last year, there were some teachers sharing voyeuristic images. And generally speaking, when these teachers get into trouble in Japan, generally speaking, they're male teachers. But when I see news from the United States about teachers getting into trouble with students, it seems to be female teachers getting into the most trouble. I don't see many news reports about male teachers from the U.S. Are there such reports, or is it just that the international news reports on the females? They show some pretty young, in their 20s or early 30s, female teachers. Some of them pretty good looking, some of them not so. But it seems that in Japan it's the guy teachers, and in the U.S. it's the female teachers. So, what do you think about that? Anybody have anything to comment on that? No? Okay. Okay, we'll just soldier on here. Another bit of news is Tokyo's population. We all know Japan's population is falling. We're always hearing that. But, every once in a while, you'll read another magazine report where they'll say, Tokyo, the most populous city in the world. And this is often reported, even today, even these days, you see a lot of people referring to Tokyo as being the city with the largest population in the world. Now, here we get an UN report that says Tokyo now is number 3. And I don't know if this is valid data, because it comes from the UN. So You never know. But according to this UN report, the world's largest city is Jakarta in Indonesia. And they say that Jakarta has 41.9 million inhabitants. And that's followed by number 2, which is Dhaka. And Tokyo slipped to 3rd. And they say because of the developing drop of population and Japan's graying society. And this was from a recent UN report on urbanization prospects. They say that the population of Japan's capital has grown more slowly than those of Indonesia and Bangladesh, and consequently, it's now number 3. It was number 1 in 2000, and they said now in 2025 it's number 3. And they say looking ahead, the Tokyo's urban area's population is expected to shrink from 33.4 million in 2025 to 30.7 million in 2050, which will make it ranked 7th. So Tokyo's population is shrinking because the population in general is shrinking. So that makes me wonder why aren't Tokyo real estate prices going down? Tokyo real estate prices continue to go up. I don't know. Supply and demand doesn't apply. I don't know if you've ever bought or sold real estate in Japan, but they've got a funny kind of system here where you have to go through a realtor, and the realtors are kind of like shady characters, kind of like half Yakuza or something like that. Not really. I'm just generalizing as a joke. So if you know any realtors, don't quote me. But I wonder why prices aren't crashing as the population of Tokyo continues to shrink. So they say in 2050 you'll have Dhaka as the top, followed by Jakarta, Shanghai, New Delhi, Karachi, and Cairo. And that means that Tokyo is, I don't know, not shrinking, but their placement in the rankings of cities by population is going down. That's really something here, huh? Okay, let's talk about My Number Card. Do you use My Number Card? Everybody uses My Number Card? Yeah, okay. It seems like My Number Card has become more of a mainstream kind of document, as it's now used in place of the medical insurance card and for other things. And the government said that the number of My Number national identification cards issued has surpassed 100 million, meaning that they are held by nearly 80% of the population. Kansai Boxer says, yes, recently at the doctor and dentist. Yeah, I'll use it at the doctor. And I got to admit that it's pretty easy at the doctor. You just slip it into that little device and show your face and say, agree to everything, and you're registered, which makes it quite convenient. So the My Number Card was launched 10 years ago, and that they say that they're doing their best to expand the convenience of the card and blah, 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 and all this kind of thing. So I don't want to talk about that, whether the My Number Card is good or bad. A lot of Japanese people are against the My Number Card, saying that, I don't want the government to be able to control me or control my assets or control my bank account. This kind of, they're worried about this social, what do they call that? The social score or the social standing score. If the government, or let's say the government doesn't like what you're doing and they cut you off from access to your bank assets. This is very, very scary stuff. A student of mine is so busy signing people up, she's losing her mind. Okay, well, in one way, it does increase efficiency, but in another way, it's a little bit scary because centralized data management can easily change to centralized data control, and we're all afraid of that. So there's one thing I'd like to warn everybody about my number card, and it's something that happened to me. This is a year ago, less than a year ago. So I don't know if they have resolved this or fixed it, but it's something you have to. There's something you have to be aware of. Now, this is my number card. It doesn't show my number, so my number. It shows my address. But this is my number card. And if you have a my number card, yours will look something like this. And here's this white space here, and above this white space over here, there's a date, and it says year, month, day. Mine is blank. It was blank. It's been blank since I got this my number card. So I got my number card quite a long time ago. I don't remember why I got it, but my wife says, "Yeah, we got to get these my number cards." Okay, I got my number card. So yeah, there's a story behind that. Can I tell you this story? We've got a lot of time today. My wife kindly applied for my number card at a local satellite office of the city office, and she submitted the paperwork and the photo and all that kind of thing, and they took it. And then one day I got a postcard arrived at my place, and of course, for a postcard to arrive at my place, it had my name, my address, and all that stuff written on it. And it says, "Your my number card is ready. Come to the city office to pick it up." Okay, go down to the city office, pick a number, wait, they call my number, I go up there, and I give them the postcard, and I says, "Yeah, my number card is ready." The first thing they do is they take out this piece of paper and they say, "Okay, fill this out, name and address." And me being the smart ass Yankee, I said, "You sent me a postcard. You have my name and address, don't you?" And it was one of the many, I think I have a permanent indent in my ribs from my wife giving me the elbow every time I do something like that. And so, we had to fill out everything that we filled out before for what, I don't know. And then I got my number card. So I thought, okay, I'm legal. So I asked them, "How long is this my number card good for?" And they said, "This is good for 10 years. So, okay, no problem. 10 years, that's pretty good. A Social Security card, I think I got mine when I was 13 and I never had to do anything after that. But okay, Japan is different. 10 years, I can come in again and renew it." So, like I said, I got mine a long time ago. And then when they started to change over to the my number card system, I went to get some medicine at a pharmacy. And the pharmacy said to me, "Okay, do you have a my number card?" I didn't have my insurance card. And they said, "Do you have a my number card?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Okay, stick it in this machine." So I pulled out my number card and stuck it into the machine, and it goes, "Rejected." And I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Your my number card, there's a problem with your my number card. You have to go to your city office and straighten it out." So I thought, well, that's weird. So I took it out and I put it back, same result. So anyway, they gave me my medicine anyway. And then I went to the office and I said, "What's going on? I got this thing, it's still valid. It's still not up to the 10-year limit because, I think I'm good until like 2030 or something like that." So I got mine in 2020. So I said, "What's going on? This isn't 2030. This is not expired. Why is this saying I'm expired?" "Your my number card is good for 10 years, but you have to go in and re-verify or revalidate or check in or whatever verb you want to use after 5 years. So your card is good for 10 years, but after 5 years, you got to go back to the city office and say, 'Oh, I'm still me. So this lady told me this, and it was easy to resolve. So I said to her, well, nobody, I don't think anybody told me this. And she says, yeah, we must have told you this. And she said, here, this date that I showed you, she said, you should have made a memo of your check-in date here, 5 years after you created your My Number card. You should have filled it in here. And I said, oh, I have to fill it in? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, why don't you print it, or why don't you fill? And she said, no, that's up to the owner to fill it in. Some people don't want it. As I said many times in the past, to get along in Japan, you sit there and go, sometimes you and get on with life. My Number card, it looks like it's being more and more accepted by the Japanese people. I got a question from Kansai Boxer. Do you have a choice about My Number card without looking suspicious? That's the question, right? Especially as a gaijin, as we all are, as we saw, as far as the rights. They're talking about permanent residence, non-payment and stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe they're going to say, hey, in order for you to get permanent residence or extend your visa or something like that, you're going to have to register for your My Number card. Who knows? But anyway, that's it for the My Number card. Don't forget, 5 years, you have to go back in and do the dance or whatever that they require. Your card is good for 10, but your validity is good for 5. And you have to revalidate. Let's use that one. You have to revalidate your My Number card after 5 years. So be careful. Okay. There's something else that I would like to talk about. In the past, when I did a blog and stuff like that, and then the podcast, I've always stayed away from American politics. We're interested in Japan here. I don't care what's going on in the United States. But something that is going on in the United States got me thinking recently. You've got all this stuff going on in Minnesota right now, this welfare scamming and people taking advantage of the welfare system. And you've got people getting rich off of the welfare system while, they're claiming to be some kind of child care center or health and wellness center, and actually not being one, and getting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and all this kind of thing. And that kind of thing, as far as I know, doesn't happen in Japan. Yes, there is fraud. Yes. Let me, before I get jumped on here, there is fraud in Japan, and there is welfare fraud in Japan. People do steal money in Japan, but generally it's at the top of the food chain that people are doing the fraud and stealing the money. That is somebody who's connected with a politician and gets their business in there and overcharges or gets some kind of special treatment. There was something going on with a school years ago connected with some politician. And even people who are in charge of some kind of funding, just helping themselves to the funding. There is fraud, but like I said, usually it's at the top of the food chain, not at the bottom. And I started wondering, why is it? Why does Japan not have this problem where people start cashing in, especially the gaijins start cashing in on the Japanese welfare system? And, of course, we have the complaints about the gaijins getting welfare who don't deserve it. So, there's that. But I'm talking about large-scale fraud, millions of dollars. And can that happen in Japan? I would say under the current situation, under the current Japanese system, no, it's impossible for it to happen. And one of the reasons is that Japan makes collection of welfare unattractive. Japan's public assistance program is designed to be last-ditch survival kind of assistance, not a lifestyle option. Payments are relatively modest, and they are tightly calculated. I've got all kinds of notes here because I think I'm going to end up doing a full-blown video on this. If you want to apply for welfare in Japan, they go into this process of invasive checking of your assets. They look at your bank accounts. They look at how much family support you have. They look at how much savings you have in the bank. And each caseworker has enormous discretion as to making judgments. It's like we had before. They've got guidelines, but it's the caseworker who gives these thumbs up or thumbs down. And of course, there's social pressure. People treat welfare recipients as morally suspect. And then there's the welfare for foreigners. Most permanent residents in Japan simply can't access welfare at all. There's no welfare for student visas, no welfare for work visas, generally speaking, no welfare for short-term residents. Permanent residents, technically, yes, you can apply for welfare, but it is heavily scrutinized. If you're a naturalized citizen, yes, you can apply for welfare and you may be eligible for welfare, but you're subject to the same social stigma as anyone else. In the US, they seem to stack welfare in very strange ways. You have housing assistance, food assistance, healthcare, tax credits, state and federal overlapping assistance, and it's the complexity that makes it easy to game the system. Japan's system, on the other hand, is centralized. In the United States, they got all these states doing different things. But in Japan, everything is always centralized, which has its good points and its bad points. But in the Japan system is centralized, standardized, and pretty boring. There's one program, one caseworker, one file with your name on it. And it's much harder to game the system. Now, the flip side to something like this, easy to control, easy to manage, but the flip side is that legitimately needy people sometimes fall through the cracks. Domestic abuse victims hesitate to apply. Elderly people, you hear about it all the time, die alone rather than ask for help. This is the social stigma thing. Foreign residents with real hardship often have no safety net. So just remember, in the Japanese welfare system, the rewards are minimal, barriers are high, and scrutiny is relentless. Let's talk about what they look for. Let's say you apply for welfare. What would they come and look for? If you have a car and you apply for welfare, they may tell you, sell your car. A car is an asset. A car is a luxury. Now, you might be able to apply for an exception if you're living out in the countryside, or if you have an invalid in your household and you need to drive them to the hospital or things like that. But in order to apply for the exception, you have to come up with all this paperwork, logs and all this. Japan is great for paperwork, but you have to be able to explain or prove to the welfare people why a car is a necessity for you and not a luxury. You are also expect to sell or surrender savings past some threshold. stocks or insurance that has a cash value, extra electronic devices, sometimes even musical instruments or tools. These are considered non-essential for life and therefore not allowed if you're receiving welfare. If something can be monetized, it is considered a resource. Next, they check family support. They check with your parents, your adult children, and your siblings, even if you haven't spoken to them for years, even if there's family conflict and everybody hates each other, even if there's a history of abuse, they check your family background to see if you could rely on somebody in your family for support rather than welfare. There's also a ceiling on your rent if you're receiving welfare. If you're living in a pretty nice place or a place that the caseworker or some guidelines say that the rent is too high, you may be told to move to a cheaper place. Or you may be denied welfare because your current rent is too expensive. They may push you towards a danchi or a marginal housing, the government housing. The system tends to adjust your life to fit the budget, not the other way around. You also have to show that you're searching for a job. You have to submit logs of your applications, and you have to have mandatory visits to Hello Work, job agency. Okay, and you may have to accept a job that's much lower than your education level or something like that, just to have a job. You also have to subject yourself to regular home visits. Caseworkers can visit your apartment, check your living conditions, verify who's staying there, and confirm that you're not hiding income or support. Also, side income is tightly controlled. Any income must be reported immediately. Gifts from friends, small freelance work, help from religious or civic groups must be reported to the welfare office. Lifestyle expectations are implicit but real. There's no written rule that say you can't enjoy life, but eating out too often raises eyebrows. New clothes attracts attention. Travel is suspicious. Hobbies can be questioned. The expectation is visible austerity. So there you go. When I see this stuff going on in the United States, I often wonder about how do they let this kind of thing occur? There's so much of that. I mean, it happens in Japan too. They pass rules. There are rules and regulations against certain behavior, but nobody enforces it. And so people start taking advantage of the system. What I'm trying to say here that the Japanese system is built in such a way that welfare is almost impossible to scam by the lower rungs of the food chain. We got somebody coming in here. Is the number of recipients available in a public record, or do we know the public total budget for welfare? I don't know. Like I said, I may do a full video on this, and that's something worth looking up and looking into, looking for the stats. I also want to see about the gaijins on welfare and see if that's actually a big difference. We have a top gears gear. Wow. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to you too. Kelvin from Alabama. The politicians allow it to happen here because it guarantees they can stay in power. Yes, that's true. This importing importing people, and counted in the census. There's all kinds of things. We can talk about that forever. And then there is some suspicion, and it's being supposedly investigated, that money goes to these people, these scammers, and then the scammers donate money as for political donations to the politicians who allowed them to get away with this. The stuff that's going on in the United States, I think that the United States has a really, really big enforcement problems, and it's not just for welfare fraud. Even this the banking scandal. When was it? At the beginning of the century. The banks, the bank fraud that went on at that time, and all the investigations that they did, and not one person went to jail. Like, all right, Jeffrey Epstein, right? That's still a bone stuck in the craw of many voters. And what did they do? They put his girlfriend in jail, and that's it. Something needs to be done to hold people accountable, because if you don't hold people accountable, remember, people respond to two things: pain and pleasure, right? And if something gives them a benefit, they weigh it. Well, I can get this benefit at the risk of this much pain. So, the pain level's pretty low. So, hey, why not? But if you make the pain level, you jack up the pain level a bit, then the profit is less appealing, less attractive, and people behave. There were bad people in the past, of course, in the United States, everywhere. Yeah, still are. But I remember one conversation that I had. I used to teach at the Nippon Steel. That's a steel company that tried to buy U.S. steel, that Trump gave him a hard time or something. I don't know if the deal went through. But I used to teach English at Nippon Steel. And I used to go there a lot, almost every day. And I would talk to these guys. And at the time that I was there, Japan was the top steel producer maybe in the world. And they had very high tech steel production technology. And so a lot of their business was exporting the technology, teaching other countries how to make steel. And I talked to some of the guys who went overseas to all of these different countries. They used to tell me some really wild stories. But I remember one time talking to this guy, and we were talking about how people do business around the world. And he said, yeah, every time we try to do business, we try to sell something or get a contract, there's some official with their hand out. And they say, if you don't, I think there was a scandal about a payment. And I asked him, and he says, yeah, in international relations, this paying off officials is part of doing business. And I said, oh, really? I says, and I knew he had been to the United States. And I said, is that true in the United States too? And he said, nope. He said, Americans don't do that. And he said, this was back in the early 70s. And he said, one time I was in a negotiation with a guy, and I offered him some kind of a gift or something. I don't know if it was monetary or a gift in kind. And this American said, no way, man, I can't do that. That would be illegal. That would be immoral. So there was a time. I mean, the World War II generation, I think, were pretty moral and upstanding people. But the United States has seemed to lost a lot of their sense of what is right. And so they don't pursue wrongdoers like they used to. And that includes the people in power, the politicians. A lot of these politicians right now should be in jail, I think. Let's see. We got some things coming in here. Some comments. Carlint39. Happy New Year. Hey, I joined just now. I plan to go back and listen. I wasn't expecting this topic, but it sounds interesting about foreigners not being able to get welfare. I was wondering about the Zainichi, foreigners who were there and would also be excluded. I think the case of those people versus foreign workers should be considered differently. Yeah, I would suspect that the Zainichi are handled differently. Are Zainichi foreigners? That's the big question. They're foreigners because they have a foreign passport, but a lot of them were born, raised, bred, brought up in Japan, and they just refuse to change their nationality. The Zainichi are treated differently in a lot of different ways, and for good reason. It's similar to the thing that the way certain racial groups in the United States are handled. All right, I'm talking about Black people and historical realities have to be taken into consideration. And so the Zainichi people, very much so, a lot of them, their ancestors were brought over here against their will and subjected to slave labor over here, working for Japanese. So it's a big, big social problem. But like I said, I've been thinking about doing a full video on this. And that's another thing that I'm going to have to look into is how the Zainichi people are affected by this. So I'm going to ask all of you. Sometimes I want to talk about this kind of topic. Now, this kind of topic is kind of borderline. It's not Japanese, but it has a Japanese hook in the welfare thing, the Japanese welfare. But I made comments about the U.S. Please let me know. Is this okay? How about videos? Would it be okay to talk about this kind of thing in the videos, or should I just stick with Japan only, stick to the topic? Anybody want to comment on this? I'd really appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be doing some deeper diving. Already I have, all kinds of notes here. I just started looking into it a couple of days ago. Yeah, comparing and contrasting has a value. Yeah. All right, here's one thing, compare and contrast. Like I said, the Japanese, they approach this in this way. Americans approach it in that way. There's another thing that I think about sometimes, and it has nothing to do with welfare. And this is this thing about cleanliness. And people say, oh, Japan's such a clean country. And yeah, relatively speaking, yeah. But generally speaking, talking in terms of 100%, no, not really. I mean, there are plenty of dirty people here too. But like in the big city of Tokyo, it's relatively clean compared to a place like Chicago or New York. Not that I know that well about what's going on in Chicago and New York, but it's often said that, okay? And looking around as I go about my business in Tokyo, I always get this impression. One of the reasons Tokyo is so clean is because they pay people, mostly retirees or middle-aged people, I guess can't get any other job. They pay people to go out and clean stuff. They wipe down the handrail of the escalators and the rails of the stairways. They sweep up. They wash windows. They're out there scooping up leaves and crap off the street. It's because they invest in cleanliness. They make it a paid occupation for some people. Do they do that in the United States, in the big cities? And if they don't do that, why not? Do the people in the U.S. big cities think that things will clean up on their own? I'm ignorant on this, so if anybody would like to let me know and about what's going on. But I'm always impressed in Japan. Somebody's always out there cleaning and doing, and some of them look like they're employees. Some of them are what do they call it? The Silver Club or Silver Association. People who are retirees can sign up with the city to be a silver worker, and they're given these jobs to go out and sweep up and clean up and do this and do that. So I've got some stuff coming in. This seems to be a good topic. To answer your question, I agree with Kansai Boxer. As an American living in Japan, thinking about two countries' situations is interesting. Helps Gaijin's deeper understanding. Yeah, I think so too. Kelvin says, I think it's fine to contrast Japanese life to other countries. It provides context and perspective. Yeah. Sometimes I'll talk about certain things, and then people say, well, what about this country over here? Which also always makes me laugh. I don't live in that country over there, so I don't care. But it's good to contrast, right? I don't think you're trying to influence political outcome, or in no way. Just commenting on it, and your experience yields unique insights. Very well. Okay, thank you, Carlin, number 39. What I would say, too, is the outward face of people in Japan is that they are clean and respectful. Often people's homes are messy, dirty, in my experience here, too. Bing bong. Bing bong. If you're not a regular in Japan, bing bong means correct, right? So what you see on the outside isn't what you get. Yeah, that's Japan in a nutshell, isn't it? So it's ultimately for the society. It's good. Carlin says, I'm not too knowledgeable about current U.S. situation, but I thought garbage disposal, etc., was usually outsourced to private companies. Yeah, there you go. I think a lot of that when started or was implemented during the Reagan administration, this privatization. And I wonder about that. When it was implemented, I thought, hey, man, privatization, only way to go. Then the profit motive will keep people straight and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm wondering about that. Is it more difficult to rein in an outside sourced company? The Koizumi administration, Prime Minister Koizumi, also did a lot of privatization. And you have Japanese people to this day who complain about how he screwed up Japan with his privatization, my wife being one of those people. He privatized the post office, I believe, and ever since then, the post office services has gone downhill. I don't know if that's because of privatization or if it's because of the facts of life of the internet and social media and technology. But the Japanese postal system is not what it used to be. And he privatized JAL, and I don't know if it was before Koizumi or after. Maybe it was before that they privatized the railway companies. Did you know that people were killing other people over privatization of the Japanese railway companies? Did you know that? People who were against privatization went to the home of one official. I don't know. I'd have to look up the details to refresh my memory. But, murdered this guy in his house for trying to privatize the Japanese railway company. To this day, I sometimes make a mistake and call the Japanese railway system Kokutetsu, which is the old name when it was under the nationalized railway company. But, that's you got to wonder, is privatization good? Is public ownership good? So, weigh in if you've got a opinion. Okay. I'm not too knowledgeable. Okay. Sorry, foster care services, and it's going badly. Yeah, foster care services. There you go. Are you? I don't really understand your comment there, Kansai Box. But okay, Kansai Boxers. Sorry, foster care services. Yeah, foster care services are seem to be growing, and I don't understand what you mean by going badly. If you want to, give us more, look up. It's all right. I think you got cut off there. I'll scroll down. Nope. Talking about the post office, EMS back to the U.S. used to be awesome and super cheap, but not so great these days. U.S. post office used to be better and more affordable too. Yeah, the U.S. post office. In fact, my grandfather, whose name I share, and my father's father was the chief postal inspector for the city of Chicago back when he was alive. And working for the post office was a very prestigious job. He was working for the U.S. government at the time. In fact, my father, during a time when he was younger, lived in Washington, D.C. for a while. And they built a pretty good life there in Chicago. And then after the post office, I know after the post office privatized, it went downhill. I don't know if it started going downhill beforehand, but it certainly is. The government, as we know, the bad thing about the government is if it's paying for something, it tends to overpay. And it doesn't know how to end a program. It just keeps continuing a program and making it bigger and bigger. So the thought was, okay, if we privatize it and put them on a profit system, then they'll have to knuckle under and come up with good systems and good work and good quality, and things will be fine. But, in the US and in Japan, what happens is that they figure that in order to become profitable, they need to cut services. The mail deliveries have been cut. Like you said, EMS thing. This is really something. These packages, parcels out of Japan to the United States. It seems that I wrote something on this a while back. I don't remember what the details were, but it seems like those EMS and those small packages that was set up by Congress not that long ago to be that cheap, and they didn't have to pay duty if the contents were below a certain amount. And what they did with this change in the EMS is they actually brought the post office in line with other countries. This is what I remember from some time ago, but don't trust my memory. So when I first came to Japan, I sent several bags called sea bags for next to nothing. It took a long time to get here, but was so cheap. Sea mail in Japan is no longer available from the US. Yeah, I remember using sea mail in the past. Took forever, but it was cheap, right? But yeah, no longer available. That's interesting. One thing on the post topic, I'm seriously amazed by how good Japan Post is compared to Australia Post back home for local posts. Probably an hour, probably about half the price in my experience. Really. Australia is such an interesting place. I always thought that it was a real cowboy kind of place, and can do and buy your own bootstraps and really hardcore on your own adventure spirit kind of place. But ever since the pandemic, I've been going like this about Australia and some of the news coming out from out of there. I don't know. Maybe you know better than I do. I will say that virtually all the people I have ever met in Japan from Australia have been salt of the earth kind of folks. Loved every one of them. Used to play golf with some Australian people, wonderful people. I played golf one time with 2 Australian guys, and every once in a while I had to ask them to translate what what they were talking about into normal English. But yeah, okay. Foster care privatization is going badly in Texas because they're not spending the money that is required. Okay, I'll have to look that up. Foster care in Texas. Let me make a note. Yeah, I wonder how foster care is going to pan out here in Japan. You know, as the population gets older and older, we're paying into the system. I'm paying into the system every month or whatever, and I hope that there's something there when I need it. If you ever see me in a live stream, if I ever start drooling, let me know and I'll shut it off and hang it up. I was shocked that New Year's postcards are now 85 yen, but that's not a Japan thing, obviously. Okay, maybe you weren't here at the beginning, but let me repeat something that I did. So we have some things about the post office this year. This was my first story, so some of the people here that are here now didn't hear this. This year, there was a record low of 363 million New Year's postcards delivered on January 1st. Now, that's a lot of postcards, 363 million, but it's a record low. And it's the 17th consecutive year of decline, and it's only 74% of last year's numbers. So, Nengajo is big business in Japan, not only for the post office. We've got the people who make the postcards. I mean, I don't know if that's the post office, or they probably outsource it to a printer. And then there are all every year you get these, you can buy these books, and these books have software in there, and you put the software in your computer and you design your card, and you can print them out on your color printer if you like. And you can have databases of your addresses that you could carry forward and revise and add to and delete from. And some people really into it. My wife used to be really into it until last year. And then this year, as we got close to New Year's, I noticed she wasn't jumping around and going to buy things like she usually does. And I asked her, how about Nengajo? And she says, I'm not gonna send it, which I was really surprised, because she was a diehard holdout, and I used to shake my head wondering why is she spending so much time on Nengajo and not more time taking care of me? No, not really. But I used to think that she would run around buying stuff. But anyway, I think that eventually technology will be the death of Nengajo, because I've gotten New Year's cards. I got a lot of New Year's cards by Messenger and by line and things like that. And so nobody in my social circles send Nengajo anymore. Everybody's doing it online. So, yeah. How much was it that they said? 85 yen to send a Nengajo. Yeah, that adds up after a while, right? 85 yen here. What's the old saying? 85 yen here, 85 yen there. Soon you're talking about real money. EMS is wild. About 20,000 yen for my monthly box of things back to us. 20,000 yen to send stuff by EMS? 20,000 yen seems to be a popular number. Did I tell you about my bank? Sometimes, if somebody can give me advice, I sometimes need to bring money in from the United States. And it has become so hard to bring money from the United States. In the past, I would write a check, take the check to any bank in Japan, cash the check. They'd make me wait for a month or so for the money to come before they'd give it to me. But still, it was doable. And then one day, I think it was for the Trump COVID checks, I took the check into the bank and I said, I want to cash this check. And they said, we don't cash checks. And I said, what? Well, just a couple of months ago, I kept, and they said, we don't cash checks anymore. So I went around to other banks. They don't cash checks. So what are you going to do? So I found out that Prestia Bank, which is, I think, a Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank, they have a bank called Prestia, has banking and checking. They also have multi-money accounts. You can keep yen and dollars. Okay, good, just what I needed. So I got myself a Prestia account, and I would occasionally, once a year or twice a year, write a check and bring money over from the United States. And they would charge 5,000 yen to process the check. Not cheap, but, I mean, what are you going to do? Shikataga. So then they sent me an email a couple months ago that said, starting from next year, April next year, whenever, 20,000 yen per check to cash a check. 4 times. They're going to increase it 4 times. They said, if you have a balance in our bank greater than 10 million yen, you can cash checks for free. Less than 10 million yen, you have to pay 20,000 yen. So then they go into the BS reasons. They said, the reason we're doing this is to fight money laundering. So I read that and I said, come on, if you're going to raise your price, raise your price. Don't BS people. Because what are they saying? The people with balances greater than 10 million yen don't launder money, but people with lower balances launder money. I mean, what are you talking about? What a stupid thing. But anyway, I need to find a way to move money from the United States into Japan. And if anybody knows of a way to do that, please let me know, and I will be forever grateful. Okay, we got plenty of comments coming in. Okay, Kansai Boxer, I'm going to look into that Texas thing, right? Okay, foster care, EMS is wild, 20,000 yen. Wow, that's a lot of money. I was shocked at New Year's postcards on 85 yen. Australia is just going through a large culture battle in the moment. In plain English, it's people who love Australia and those who hate it fighting. Amen. Here we go again. Bing bong, right? That's the same thing that's happening in Japan. Same thing that's happening in the United States. Same thing that's happening in UK and other countries in Europe. And I just hope that the right people win the battle. And I love our expats. Like I said, Australian people, great people. Interesting. Wise is the answer. Wise. Here, I tried Wise. And the thing is, I used it once and it worked fine. I have money in a money market account with Vanguard, a big mutual fund company. And so I signed up with Wise and I connected my Wise account to Vanguard. And I said, transfer this much money to this bank account. Vanguard says, okay, calm, no problem. Then Wise changed their system. Before, Wise, every one of the Wise users had their own unique bank account. Okay? So if I transferred money, they would transfer to my bank account, and then I could transfer money to Japan. Wise then changed their system so that it's a commingled bank account. They have one humongous bank account where all the Wise money gets put in, and then each, for example, if I put money in my Wise account, it will put it into that general account, single general account that they have, and it'll be earmarked as my money. It's not my own bank account. So when I tried to register that bank account with Vanguard, they wouldn't register it. They want a specific bank account hooked up to me. So Wise didn't work. And I went round and round and round and round and round. Yeah. Wise is good in many ways, but it's not good when you're trying to get money over from Vanguard. And dealing with Vanguard is its own little adventure. I would highly recommend using Wise. Yeah. My method is Pay ID bank transfer, USD to USD in your Wise account, then convert it in about okay. Yeah. I've heard of Wise, and people have recommended. Someone even showed me a credit card from Wise. Yeah. I think maybe if you have a bank account and you transfer to Wise, it might work without any problem. But Vanguard will not have anything to do with Wise. Like I said, I tried to link my after the Wise change, I tried to link the Wise bank account to Vanguard. And Vanguard is really sneaky. They, instead of saying, we won't honor this bank account, they try to wear you down administratively. So you try to connect your account, and it says, your transaction cannot be completed at this time. Call this number and talk to a Vanguard representative. So, okay, stay up till the middle of the night, call up. Thank you for calling Vanguard. Our lines are busy right now. And then you're sitting there for a half an hour listening to their damn music. And then finally you get some Vanguard agent, representative, professional, associate, or whatever they're called these days. And it's just some youngster who doesn't know jack about Jill. And you say, well, I'm trying to do this. They said, yeah, well, just go to the website and, and put the information. It should work fine. I tried doing that. And they said, okay, we'll send you this thing and send you this document and you'll be able to do it that way. And they send this document, and this document says, yeah, this has to be authorized using some system, not notarization, but you have to use this signature verification system that is not available in Japan, no matter what you do or how you try to do it. I've tried. I've been through heaven and hell and back again, and they just won't cooperate. And so I don't know. I might have to eat that 20,000 yen for the check, or put 10 million yen in my bank account. Okay. Wise may have changed since then, as I have my own bank account with them. Oh, really? Okay. I used to have one of those. And then they changed it. Okay. Vanguard definitely might be the block there. Haha. Very frustrating. It's annoying, as you would need to transfer from Vanguard to another user and then to us. Yes, I have thought of that. There's the kicker. I've lived in Japan for such a long time that I don't have a U.S. bank account anymore. And in order to have create a U.S. bank account, I have to have a U.S. mailing address. And there's the kicker. I don't have a U.S. mailing address, and I know that there are workarounds, but I just have not gotten things mentally prepared to go through all the trouble. Okay, anyway, we're losing people. I've been yakking away. It's almost, wow, 9:23. I've been talking for an hour and a half. Sorry about that. But this has been really interesting for me. So let's cut it off here. Like I said, I was trying to run OBS on my laptop, on my Dell Dell laptop, and it just wouldn't work. I had all kinds of trouble. So during the next week or so, I'm going to test out using my Mac Mini, who's got an M4 Silicon, which should be able to knock OBS dead. I'm going to be doing some experimentation, and if I get it done, next week's live stream may be much flashier and cooler and more professional than it has been until now. I hope we can start getting more people coming in. If I keep shooting my mouth off as long as I did this time, maybe nobody will come. But look for me again next Saturday if you've got nothing to do, and we can hang out. And if you can figure out a way to help me get my money over to Japan, I'd appreciate it. And I'll buy you a cup of coffee if we ever get together, or a beer or whatever. I don't drink, but I'll buy you a beer anyway. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by, all you great people. And we'll see you next week, next Saturday, when we go live again at GAIJIN50 Plus with our Japan Talk live stream. And I hope it'll be more professional back then. Okay, Carlin, thanks. I'm glad you had fun. Okay, always good to rewatch these. I'll catch up on the first half. Okay, all right. And thanks again. And if there's anything that you ever want to hear about, anything you ever want me to cover, drop me a line and I'll be fun to do it. Have a great week. You too. Have a great year. Have a great week. And I'll see you again next Saturday. And by the way, my University Works finishes at the end of January, and I've got all kinds of content that I'm going to be having coming up. So the site's going to become more and more active, and I hope you all enjoy it. All right. Thank you. Good night. Take it easy. And that stream.